everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel.
Deadpool the Superstar, Chapter 71 to 81. Chapter 71, Deadpool and Dogs Not Allowed. 21:15 words. Claire took blind spot with her. Deadpool had offered, very enthusiastically, to go along and help. He listed all the useful things he could do: carry medical supplies, hold bandages, fetch water, open doors, make jokes to keep morale high, and generally serve as a handsome and professional assistant. Claire rejected him without hesitation. Absolutely not. She knew Wade too well by now. Even if he did not cause an actual disaster, his non-stop talking alone would be enough to destroy any chance of a calm medical treatment. If she let him into the car, Blind Spot might survive the blood loss only to die from irritation. So Deadpool could only stand there and watch Claire's car disappear into the night. He placed both hands on his hips and sighed like a tragic hero abandoned by society. This world was too cold. Where was the basic trust between people? Was he really the kind of person who would fool around while a friend was treating a badly injured apprentice? He stood there for a moment and thought seriously about it. Then he nodded to himself. Self-awareness was a virtue. He was exactly that kind of person. But that was not the point. The important thing was that Claire did not trust him. That was the real injustice here. Deadpool folded his arms and snorted. Outrageous. With nowhere else to go and no one willing to appreciate his many talents, he changed into civilian clothes and headed for a place that always welcomed the strange, the violent, and the completely unemployable. Sisters Margaret's bar. At this hour, Hell's Kitchen should have been half asleep. But Sisters Margaret's never slept properly. As the unofficial job market for mercenaries, bounty hunters, crooked fixers, and every morally flexible soul in the city, it remained lively well past midnight. No one in Hell's Kitchen with a working brain wanted to start trouble there for no reason. The people inside lived by the blade, the gun, the bomb, and sometimes by deaths that smelled worse than corpses in summer. Even gangsters preferred to avoid them unless business demanded it. The moment Deadpool stepped inside, warm noise crashed into him like a wave. The bar was packed. Beer sloshed. Chairs scraped. Laughter burst from every corner. Half the room smelled of cheap alcohol, old smoke, bad decisions, and unpaid blood money. A massive man at one of the tables slammed down his bottle, wiped his mouth, and shouted to the room, "Let me ask you all something." The surrounding mercenaries turned toward him with the lazy curiosity of people who had seen too much and feared too little. The man leaned back and grinned. "When you're playing poker, do you stare straight into your girlfriend's face?" A few whistles rose immediately. The man chuckled, pleased with the attention. "I tried it last night and wow." He smacked his lips like he was still enjoying the memory. At once the room exploded into hoots, jeers, and filthy laughter. Some yelled yes. Some yelled no. A few started arguing as if the question carried serious philosophical weight. Then the door opened and Deadpool walked in. "Hey, Wade, perfect timing," someone shouted from the side. "You answer it." "Would you do that?" Deadpool strolled toward the bar like a man arriving at his own talk show. "Of course not," he said. A few people booed. He dragged out a chair, sat down, and added, "I did it once." That got everyone's attention again. Deadpool leaned on the counter like he was sharing a painful confession. She got extremely angry. Like, really angry. Like she wanted to tear me limb from limb. He paused. And then she did. The room went silent for half a second. Ever since then, Deadpool went on solemnly, I haven't dared look her in the eyes again. The strongman who had asked the question frowned. Why would she get angry? Shouldn't she get shy? Deadpool looked honestly confused. I still don't understand it. He spread his hands. It wasn't even a big deal. He lowered his voice dramatically. Is it just because she was standing outside the window? For one frozen moment, nobody reacted. Then the entire bar erupted. Men nearly fell out of their chairs laughing. Someone pounded the table so hard his drink spilled. One mercenary in the back actually choked on his beer. Deadpool nodded to himself, satisfied. The audience was warmed up. "A Bloody Mary," he said, sliding into position at the counter. Behind the bar, Weasel gave him a long look while wiping a glass. "You know," Deadpool said, "you set me up with a very troublesome job." Weasel lifted both hands at once. Buck made the introduction. At once Deadpool turned his head. Buck, sitting farther down the bar, instantly dropped his face into his folded arms and pretended to be deeply unconscious from alcohol. Deadpool stared at him. Weasel leaned forward slightly. "Ketchup's mission over?" He deliberately chose his words carefully. Over, not completed. He knew Wade well enough to understand that Deadpool might mock Daredevil all day, but he would not actually do serious harm to him. Deadpool took the drink, swirled the red liquid in the glass, and stared into it. The Bloody Mary sloshed in a rich crimson spiral. In his eyes it probably looked like two glamorous ketchup models fighting for screen time. "What do you think?" he said. Weasel sighed dreamily. "If you ask me, I wouldn't mind a girlfriend like that." Deadpool turned to him. Weasel rested his chin in his palm and gazed into the middle distance, as if he were reciting poetry. Beautiful face. Incredible figure. Dressed in red so bright it could set a man's blood on fire. He let out a breath. "A goddess." Deadpool snorted. "Every woman is a goddess in your eyes." For reasons no one had fully understood, Weasel had entered some kind of desperate mating season over the last 2 years. He had transformed from a twitchy rodent-like bartender into a permanently lovesick idiot. Deadpool had not forgotten last year's disaster, when Weasel had somehow developed a crush on old Mrs. Ellis from down the block. The poor woman had nearly fainted in terror, convinced that Weasel had found the stash of suspicious white powder she had hidden under the utility cabinet, and had come to murder her for it. The truth had been even stranger. There had been no powder left under the cabinet at all. Deadpool had replaced it with sugar months earlier just to see what would happen. It had been hilarious. And also deeply disturbing. Deadpool lifted his glass and said, "I'd bet 50 cents that your goddess is currently using my best friend's best friend to heal her broken heart." Weasel let out a tragic sigh. "Don't be sad," Deadpool said, patting his shoulder with fake sympathy. "At least I can offer you one piece of good news." Weasel looked up hopefully. "My best friend is blind." Weasel blinked. Deadpool continued, "So at least he can't stare lovingly into your goddess's eyes." Weasel slammed the counter. The front door of the bar exploded inward. Wood shattered. Glass sprayed through the air. A graceful figure flew backward into the room, twisted in midair with impossible agility, and landed on all fours like a striking animal. The bar instantly fell silent. Buck jerked upright from his fake drunken coma, and squinted at the newcomer. "Who's that?" The woman was tall and athletic, dressed in a white fitted battle suit marked with black accents. A hood framed her face, and pointed ear-like shapes rose from it, giving her a fierce predatory silhouette. Her long black hair was tied into a high ponytail that still fell all the way to her waist. One hand pressed against her abdomen. Her breathing was controlled but not steady. Her eyes were locked on the ruined doorway. Deadpool took a sip of his drink. "How should I know?" he said lazily. "She isn't exactly white." Of course, he knew perfectly well who she was. White Tiger. A street-level hero empowered by a magical jade tiger amulet. The charm granted her enhanced strength, sharper reflexes, and combat ability far beyond that of an ordinary human. In the right hands, it could turn someone into a living weapon. Thinking of that, Deadpool's gaze dropped briefly to her slim waist. There it was. A delicate tiger-striped jade pendant hung at her side. Then, to Deadpool's genuine surprise, Weasel suddenly sat up straighter. I know her, he whispered. Deadpool looked at him. Weasel's eyes shone with reverence. She is my goddess. Deadpool stared. Then he slowly put down his drink. Let me get this straight, he said. You fell in love with a bottle of ketchup earlier, and now you've upgraded to a bottle of salad dressing. Weasel put a hand over his heart. That's what love is. He sighed deeply and declared, like ketchup mixed with salad dressing. Sweet and sour. Deadpool closed his eyes for one full second, as if asking heaven for patience. Then he turned to Buck. Buck grabbed his beer, took a huge swig, and slammed his fist against the counter. Mixed sauces are heresy. Deadpool pointed at him immediately. Excellent answer. Then everyone's attention shifted back toward the doorway. The dust settled. And the large shape standing there became clear. A broad-shouldered middle-aged man stepped over the wreckage with the calm confidence of a predator entering a pen full of livestock. He wore a heavy fur cloak over his shoulders, a rough open shirt across his chest, and around his waist a tigerskin garment that made it impossible to tell whether he was trying to survive winter or impress a museum. His beard was thick. His face was harsh. His eyes were focused only on White Tiger. Kraven the Hunter. Deadpool looked once and understood the situation immediately. There was no mystery here. Kraven had seen prey he found worthy. And he had decided to claim it. White Tiger was strong, fast, fierce, and empowered by mystical magic. To a man like Kraven, that was not a person. That was the hunt itself calling his name. A dangerous woman with a tiger spirit wrapped around her body. Honestly, what hunter could resist that? Kraven stepped forward. The sound of him walking across broken wood was strangely heavy. Then, all at once click. The bar filled with the metallic chorus of guns being cocked. Dozens of weapons rose. Black muzzles pointed straight at Kraven from every direction. Every mercenary in the room had drawn. Kraven did not even slow down. He only turned his head slightly and cast one cold glance across the room. My target is her, he said. Only her. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the bar like a blade sliding free. If any of you wish to die for no reason, I do not mind taking extra heads home with me. The threat was simple. And absolutely believable. White Tiger immediately straightened despite the pain in her side. Don't move, she shouted. She knew exactly how dangerous Kraven was because she had already fought him. Even with the power of the Jade Amulet strengthening her body, she had still failed to stop him. If she had trouble against him, then most of the people in this bar dangerous as they were would just become corpses if things escalated too far. Kraven smiled, showing teeth. Still resisting, little tiger. He reached toward his waist and rested one hand on the bone dagger tucked there. Truthfully, I only want the amulet. His gaze dropped to the jade charm. Give it to me, and I will not hurt you. For once, he was not lying. Without the amulet, White Tiger would be an ordinary woman. And Kraven had no interest in hunting ordinary people. White Tiger's hands curled into claws. Sharp nails extended. Her jaw tightened. You can dream. Kraven's smile widened. He drew the bone knife from his waist. If you surrendered now, I would be disappointed. The air in the bar changed instantly. Mercenaries adjusted their grips. Chairs scraped backward. Weasel swallowed. Buck quietly reached for another weapon. Deadpool lifted his Bloody Mary and watched with open interest, like a man settling in for the next act of a beautifully stupid play. Because now there was no longer any doubt. A fight was about to begin. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe31 Chapter 72. Chapter 72. Don't get angry, good kitty 1452 words. Just as the tension in the bar was about to explode, White Tiger suddenly felt a hand grab the back of her neck. It pinched the scruff of her collar like someone picking up a kitten. Her tiger instincts reacted instantly. She spun around, her sharp eyes full of caution and hostility. And what she saw made her expression freeze. Standing behind her was Deadpool. Or more accurately, a man who looked like a cooked and peeled avocado wearing a mask. Deadpool jumped back in fright. "Don't get your fur all puffed up." He raised both hands dramatically. "Relax, good kitty. Calm kitty." Then he even made ridiculous noises. Meow meow, slurp slurp slurp. White Tiger stared at him. Her face slowly darkened. "What exactly is wrong with you?" Deadpool looked completely innocent. He scratched his head. "I was just reading a biology book recently," he explained seriously. "It said that mother cats carry their kittens by the scruff of the neck when moving them. And if you pinch the scruff of a cat's neck, the cat becomes completely relaxed. Like it's safe with its mother." He pointed at her neck thoughtfully. "So I just wanted to test if that theory was true." He paused and looked at her irritated expression. Then nodded. "Definitely false." White Tiger's face turned darker. "I'm human." Her voice carried clear irritation. They were literally seconds away from a fight with a dangerous hunter. And this idiot was playing with her neck like she was a house cat. But before she could say anything else, Deadpool suddenly grabbed the small ears on top of her hood and tugged them gently. What kind of normal person has ears on top of their head? White Tiger clenched her fists. That was just part of the White Tiger suit design. What exactly was she supposed to do about it? Remove the suit and redesign it on the spot. Deadpool finally stepped forward and positioned himself between her and the men standing at the destroyed doorway. "Kraven the Hunter." Deadpool looked Kraven up and down. His expression slowly turned into pure disdain. "Hey, buddy." He pointed at Kraven's outfit. "I'm sure this fashion might be considered futuristic in Wakanda. But this is New York." He tilted his head. "So I have to ask. Did you just time travel here from the Stone Age?" Kraven's eyes narrowed slightly. His grip tightened around the bone dagger in his hand. "This does not concern you. My prey is only her." His voice was calm. But dangerous. Kraven had hunted countless creatures. From jungle predators to enhanced humans. And one of the most important abilities for a hunter was danger perception. Right now, Kraven felt something extremely unusual. A deep sense of pressure. Standing in front of Deadpool gave him a strange feeling. Like a superior life form looking down on something weaker. It reminded him of the first time he stood before a wild tiger as a young hunter. That primal instinct. That fear. A fear that made the legs feel weak. Kraven had not felt that sensation in many years. Deadpool yawned lazily. "Actually, I don't really care about your hunting business." Then he turned and pointed toward the bar. "However, a friend of mine does." Everyone followed his finger. Weasel was instantly frozen like a statue. Kraven's terrifying gaze slowly moved toward him. Weasel nearly ducked behind the bar. But when he noticed White Tiger also looking at him, he forced himself to stand straight. "That's right. It was him." Deadpool continued speaking casually. "He just fell in love with this cute little cat." He sniffed the air exaggeratedly. "Smells like salad dressing." The entire bar fell silent. Then Deadpool continued. "You can take the jade pendant and the head. My friend will take the body." Deadpool froze. Then slapped his own forehead. This may be Deadpool's R-rated channel. But we don't need to make the story that weird. He dragged his hand down his face. "Please give me some dignity." Kraven stared deeply at Deadpool. Then suddenly turned away. He spoke coldly. "After her, you will be my next hunting target." Deadpool yawned again. Before leaving, please drop that dagger. Kraven paused. Deadpool pointed toward the broken doorway. It's payment for the door. If you don't pay, you can stay here and wash dishes for 2 months. He held up a finger. And remember, each cup must be washed 7 times. Kraven stumbled slightly. He glared back with anger. Then suddenly threw the bone dagger onto the ground. Without another word he left. Kraven was not afraid. But hunting someone like Deadpool required planning. Careful planning. Deadpool watched him disappear. Then snorted. If people don't know you, they might think you're the creator of the universe, Hunter. Deadpool shrugged. He was in a good mood today. After all, he had earned $60,000. Otherwise, Kraven might not have walked away so easily. Kraven had once taken a mysterious potion from the witch Calypso. The potion gave him superhuman strength, long lifespan, and terrifying speed. At maximum effort he could run nearly 100 kilometers per hour. And maintain it for quite some time. If Kraven truly decided to run, Deadpool might actually struggle to catch him. After all, in the comics Kraven had once fought Spider-Man repeatedly. And had even successfully killed Spider-Man once. Deadpool's expression suddenly froze. Then his brain exploded. This guy might hurt Parker. Everyone watched as Deadpool suddenly exploded with rage. He began shouting and sprinted toward the exit. Come back here. You're not allowed to bully Spider-Man. He ran out of the bar chasing Kraven. The entire bar fell silent again. White Tiger's little ears twitched slightly. She scratched her head and looked toward Weasel. Weasel shrugged helplessly. He's always like that. Then he smiled politely. How about a drink? My treat. White Tiger slowly walked to the bar, still holding her injured abdomen. She lifted half her mask, revealing the delicate lower half of her face. A glass of ice water, please. Earlier during the fight Kraven had landed a full power kick on her abdomen. She was still feeling the pain. Weasel quickly poured the water. Then handed it to her. Along with something else. An ice pack. Mercenary bars always kept simple medical supplies around. Weasel flashed what he believed was a charming smile. A cold compress might help. White Tiger accepted the items. Thank you. She placed the ice pack gently on her abdomen. Then asked casually. Who was that man? Weasel blinked. Which one? The one who attacked you. White Tiger shook her head. The one who saved me. She already knew Kraven's identity. Kraven the Hunter. But Deadpool was different. Someone who could scare away Kraven with a few casual sentences was definitely not an ordinary person. Weasel's confident posture instantly collapsed. His hair even seemed to droop. He's called Wade. He sighed. He's back. You can ask him yourself. Inside his heart he felt a little depressed. Apparently he couldn't compete with a cooked and peeled avocado. At that moment the bar door opened again. Deadpool returned angrily. He had lost Kraven. As expected. Kraven had immediately sprinted into an alley. Then scattered powerful scent removal potions everywhere. Even Deadpool, who had stopped acting like a normal human long ago, couldn't track him. Deadpool stomped back to the bar. Then noticed White Tiger staring at him without blinking. You're very strong, she said. Deadpool nodded. Number 118. White Tiger blinked. What is number 118? Deadpool pulled out a small sticky note from his pocket. He smoothed his pants proudly. Your cue number. White Tiger stared. Deadpool explained calmly. We're all adults here. No need to act shy. Write your phone number here. He handed her the paper. I'll notify you when your turn arrives. If you miss your turn, it counts as skipped. And the next person moves forward. White Tiger stood frozen. She had never met such a shameless man in her entire life. All the gratitude she wanted to say disappeared completely. After holding back her frustration for a long time, she finally forced out a sentence. You must be very popular. The queue number had reached 118. That meant the waiting line was probably several months long. Deadpool nodded proudly. Of course. He pointed at himself. On screen, you can call me Wade Wilson. Then he dramatically raised a finger toward the ceiling. But off screen, he grinned. Everyone calls me Marvel Jesus. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe 31 Chapter 73, Chapter 73, The Last Question 1435 words. Deadpool returned home carrying a roll of bandages. He flipped on the small spare light in the living room. Then he froze. Matt Murdock was sitting quietly on the sofa. Deadpool blinked once. The bandages in his hand came from Sisters Margaret's bar. He had no other choice. Claire had refused to let him anywhere near her clinic tonight, so if he couldn't fleece Claire for supplies, he could only fleece Weasel instead. Besides, Deadpool was confident Weasel had made plenty of money from Elektra's mission. Thinking about it carefully, Deadpool suddenly decided something. The $50,000 he owed Weasel before. He definitely wasn't paying that back. At that exact moment, far away in Sisters Margaret's bar, Weasel sneezed loudly. Back in Deadpool's apartment, Matt sensed Wade's presence and slowly stood up. His posture was calm. Almost like a sage who had reached enlightenment. Deadpool was completely used to this expression. He had seen it many times. Men often looked exactly like this after finishing certain activities. He waved his hand dismissively. You wish. He pointed toward the clock. Tonight is almost over. Which means I absolutely will not step on you tonight. Matt's face immediately turned black. Completely black. Like the bottom of a burned cooking pot. I didn't come here for that, Matt said stiffly. Deadpool tilted his head. Then what did you come for? He leaned forward suspiciously. Oh, I know. Little Matt ran out of ammo and now needs a secret place to hide from the wolf-like Elektra. Matt's face twitched. Deadpool crossed his arms. Well, you came to the wrong place. He grinned wickedly. After you left earlier tonight, Elektra came to see me. And we spent a very wonderful time together. Deadpool nodded to himself. Listening to gossip about his best friend definitely counted as a wonderful time. Matt nearly choked. Yes, Elektra had been with him earlier. But he swore that Elektra was the one who initiated everything. It had nothing to do with him. Elektra had just learned that her daughter might not even exist. She was suffering from what could only be called the pain of losing a child. Matt, as a grown man, couldn't just push her away. So he did the only thing he could. He lay there quietly, letting little Matt comfort Elektra's wounded heart. And maybe soothe his own wounded heart as well. Because earlier tonight Elektra had beaten him thoroughly. As for the phrase, wonderful time, Matt wanted to remind Deadpool of one thing. He was the blind one. Not Elektra. But in the end, Matt swallowed his words. Deadpool still held a very dangerous piece of leverage over him. It's not that either, Matt said. Deadpool immediately raised his hand. Then you must be here to pay me my $60,900. He stretched his palm forward. Home delivery payment service. How thoughtful. I knew you weren't the kind of scumbag who finishes the job and refuses to acknowledge the worker. Matt stared at him silently. After holding back his frustration for a long time, he finally spoke. I'll transfer $1,000 to you tomorrow. He paused. The $60,000 Electra promised you. You'll have to collect that from her yourself. Many people believed lawyers earned huge amounts of money. And in Hell's Kitchen, Matt was relatively famous. But the truth was far less glamorous. Matt's law firm mostly provided legal aid for poor people. Most of his clients could barely afford rent. His income was just enough to survive. Deadpool clicked his tongue. He shook his head dramatically. When they're staring at the stars and the moon, they call you sweetheart. But when it's time to pay money, they suddenly remember they only owe their own share. He sighed deeply. Honestly, talking with your pants on is really difficult. Matt's patience finally snapped. Without saying another word, he turned around and walked toward the door. This conversation could not continue. His original reason for coming here had been very simple. He wanted to thank Deadpool. If Wade hadn't intervened tonight, the conflict involving the Church of the Hand and Electra would not have ended so smoothly. But now, Matt decided it was best to leave quickly. Deadpool suddenly raised a finger. One last question. Matt stopped. He turned around slowly. Deadpool's expression had become strangely serious. I've had this question for a long time. It has tortured me for years. Matt frowned slightly. Only 2 people I know can answer it. One of them rejected me cruelly. The other one. Deadpool pointed directly at Matt. Matt's expression became serious. What question? Deadpool leaned forward and looked directly into Matt's eyes. How do blind people know? He paused dramatically. Whether they wiped clean after taking a dump. Matt froze. Completely frozen. Then he turned around and walked toward the door without hesitation. In that moment he made a solemn vow. If he ever trusted Deadpool again, he would officially be a dog. Deadpool chased after him. Just give me a hint. How do you know? The door slammed shut. Deadpool stood there blinking. So violent. But honestly, he had been genuinely curious about that question. Years ago, when he had still been sharing an apartment with Grandma Eyre, he had asked her the same thing. Unfortunately, she hadn't answered. Instead, she had stared at him like he was insane. Then she asked him a strange question. Can you really not live one day without talking about poop and pee? Deadpool had replied immediately. Can anyone live without poop and pee? Grandma Eyre had briefly considered the logic. Then she decided she did not want to admit Deadpool had a point. So she ignored him completely, and went back to organizing her antique display cabinet. Back in the apartment, Deadpool stretched lazily. All the annoying people are gone. He locked the windows. Locked the door. Double-checked that no one could disturb him. Then he stored the bandages he had collected into his system space. With a confident stride, he walked toward the bathroom. He pulled out his carbon steel longsword. Standing in front of the mirror, he adjusted his stance. His reflection stared back. Deadpool sighed. Then a flash of steel. The blade swung. Half of his head fell to the floor. Blood burst out like a fountain, splashing across the bathroom walls and turning the room crimson. Far beyond the universe, beyond all dimensions, there exists a strange realm. Even powerful beings like Mephisto, Lord of Hell, and Dormammu, ruler of the dark dimension, would never dare covet it. And yet, this place connects to every dimension. It is the mirror of all existence. The place where all things eventually end. The final resting place of every soul in the universe. This is the realm of one of the 5 cosmic entities. The embodiment of death itself. The realm of death. Death is not simply a goddess. She is not merely a spirit. She is death itself. the personification of the concept of death that appeared at the birth of the universe. If she did not often appear in a female form, the word, it would actually be more accurate. At the very center of the realm of death stood a massive palace. It rose like a mountain of bone. Inside the great hall a strange figure sat upon a throne made entirely of skulls. Her chin rested on her hand as she stared toward the palace gates with overwhelming boredom. She wore a black robe. A hood covered her head. The hands emerging from the sleeves were nothing but pale bones. Yet the body beneath the robe had flawless curves. Two faint green flames burned inside her empty eye sockets. They flickered lazily. She sighed. Then glanced at the small band-aid wrapped around her left ring finger. Below the throne sat an ancient well glowing with shifting colors. This was the Well of Infinity. Within it existed the knowledge of countless dead souls. Almost any question in the universe could be answered here. Death leaned forward slightly. She spoke softly. "When do you think Wade will come visit me again?" Normally, only beings near death could perceive her. Unless Deadpool actually died and arrived here, they could rarely meet. Death dropped a small stone into the glowing well. Ripples spread across its surface. And from deep within the well, voices began to respond. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe 31 Chapter 74, Chapter 74, Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. 1581 words, how would I know? One voice complained irritably. I don't have precognitive abilities. Another voice quickly followed. If you resurrect me, I promise I can tell you exactly how many girls that guy has been fooling around with during this time. A third voice chimed in excitedly. While you're at it, resurrect me too. I can help you capture all those women. We'll chop them up and hang their bodies on the city walls so they rot in the sun. There was a pause. Oh wait. There's no sun here. Then forget it. I don't want to live anymore. Another voice shouted from somewhere deeper in the darkness. If someone lives without even being able to feel sunlight on their skin, what's the difference between that and being dead? A tired voice sighed. Can you all shut up for once? I finally died thinking I would get some peace and quiet. But instead I still have to listen to all of you arguing every single day. Another voice spoke mockingly. Where's that big purple Tengu of yours? Why not have him kill your little lover? That would solve your problem instead of asking about it constantly. I don't understand you, another spirit said coldly. You're a universe-level god. Why are you so obsessed with some insignificant life form in a remote corner of existence? The voice before him snapped angrily. Say what you want but don't make personal attacks. Someone else agreed. You call him a low-level life form. You're acting so superior, but look at yourself. You're dead and stuck in the same well as the rest of us. Another spirit snorted. So high and mighty. Yet here you are. At the edge of the hall, Death sat quietly on her throne. Her expression looked exhausted. She vaguely remembered that the Well of Infinity used to be a dignified place. Whenever she asked it a question, it answered calmly and wisely. It never caused trouble. It never argued. It never complained. But that was before Deadpool showed up. Ever since that red and black chatterbox had started visiting her realm, the well had turned into a chaotic gossip center. Ask it a question and it would ramble endlessly, while the countless souls trapped within it argued with each other like drunken philosophers. Sometimes Death wondered if the well itself regretted gaining so much knowledge. Suddenly, Death felt something. Her expression brightened instantly. The green flames burning inside her eye sockets flickered more energetically. She knew that presence. The next moment, boom. The enormous gates of Death's palace were violently kicked open. A red and black figure burst inside dramatically, arms stretched wide. I'm here, he shouted loudly. Where's my bony beauty? My sweetie. Deadpool had arrived. Death immediately stood up from her throne. "My love, you're finally here." Her voice was filled with excitement. She ran down the long staircase made of bone, moving with surprising speed, almost like a young girl rushing to greet someone she adored. As she moved, something incredible happened. Her skeletal body began changing. Flesh slowly grew across the white bones. Muscles formed. Skin appeared. By the time she reached Deadpool, the transformation was complete. Standing before him now was a woman of breathtaking beauty. Her skin was pale like moonlight on fresh snow. Her emerald eyes shimmered like distant galaxies. Below her eyes and lips were small black vertical marks that resembled exclamation points, giving her beauty an almost supernatural charm. Deadpool stared. Then he gasped. Without hesitation, he pulled her into a fierce hug. After a moment he held her shoulders and examined her carefully from head to toe. There was only one thought in his mind. No wonder Thanos went crazy. That purple potato lunatic had wiped out half the universe just to impress her. And now Deadpool understood why. In all the memories of his 2 lifetimes, no woman had ever come close to her beauty. "Sweetheart," Deadpool said sincerely, "you are unbelievably beautiful." Death smiled gently. "My love, you are very handsome as well." She wasn't lying. As Death, she didn't judge by appearance alone. She could see the essence of a soul. To her, Deadpool's soul was. It was like a swirling storm of madness, humor, darkness, and chaos. A mind full of strange thoughts and ridiculous ideas. And somehow, she liked it. "But honestly," Deadpool said suddenly, tilting his head, "I still prefer my bony beauty. Would it be possible to let her come out for a moment?" Death blinked. Then she smiled mischievously. "If that's what you want." She raised her hand and covered half of her face. When she lowered it again, half of her beautiful face had transformed into a white skeletal skull. The other half remained stunningly human. The contrast was shocking. One side breathtaking beauty. The other side pure death. Deadpool inhaled sharply. "Hisses. Sweetheart," he whispered dramatically, "you are the perfect embodiment of the phrase red dust skeleton." It truly was. Beauty and death. Life and decay. Existing in the same face. Deadpool suddenly shook his head. "It's a good thing comic readers can only see what the author draws," he said seriously. "Otherwise they'd go insane. They'd send razor blades. They'd kidnap the writer. They'd demand to be added into the story just so they could date you. I refuse to be number 118. Death tilted her head. "Perhaps number 1,111,118. Deadpool looked horrified. Death gently cupped his face with both hands. Her emerald eyes glowed softly. "My love," she said warmly, "with me you will always be number 1. Deadpool froze. For a moment he looked deeply moved. Then he lifted the edge of her dress and wiped his tears dramatically. "Thank you, sweetheart," he sniffed. "Knowing I can cut the line makes me feel much better." Death stared at him. That was not what she meant. But she had already grown accustomed to Deadpool's chaotic logic. Instead of correcting him, she simply smiled. "So," she said softly, "what are you waiting for?" Deadpool grinned. "I was waiting for you to say that." He flipped his hand casually. A roll of bandages suddenly appeared from his system space. He slowly began unwrapping them. "Today a friend named Claire taught me a new game." Somewhere in another universe, Claire screamed. "I did not." Death raised an eyebrow. "Claire. I remember that name." She lifted her left hand. A small band-aid wrapped around her ring finger. "It seems she taught you something last time as well." Claire screamed again. "I really did not." Deadpool narrowed his eyes. "Are you jealous?" Death leaned forward and kissed him lightly. Of course not. 1,000,000 words later in the realm of death. Inside the enormous palace. Before the mysterious well of infinity. Deadpool sat cross-legged on the ground. His expression was extremely serious. He looked like a sage contemplating the mysteries of existence. Even though death herself leaned against him, occasionally teasing him, and whispering in his ear, his expression did not change. He looked calm. A philosopher beyond mortal understanding. He whispered softly. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. To him, beauty and bones were the same. Life and death were illusions. Everything was simply a red dust skeleton. His thoughts drifted. From the birth of the universe during the Big Bang. To the four fundamental forces of physics. From physics to philosophy. From philosophy to the meaning of existence. Then he began thinking about humanity's future. Would civilization survive? Would the universe eventually collapse? What was the ultimate truth behind existence? Then suddenly, his thoughts drifted somewhere else. He thought about Jill. Then Alice. Then Peyton. Then Tony Stark. Then Ethan. Then Pepper. He wondered how they were doing. He wondered what had happened after he left. He wondered whether he would ever see those worlds again. For a moment, Deadpool felt strangely quiet. Then slowly his thoughts returned to the present. He opened his eyes. They were calm like an ancient well. He stared at the well of infinity, the legendary entity said to contain every answer in the universe. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him. Oh wise well. Do you know how blind people know they've wiped properly after going to the bathroom? The well of infinity was silent. 3 full seconds passed. Then dash. What the hell? What kind of question is that? Blind people. Wiping their butts. This question exceeds the limits of my knowledge. I have been dead for tens of thousands of years, and never even considered this. This is blasphemy against the sacred well of infinity. I think I might know. I definitely don't know. My Lady Death. Another voice shouted desperately. Can you please control your man? Did he explode his brain earlier? This is 10,000 times worse than debating Dormammu's underwear color. They check by touch. Or smell. I cannot continue this discussion. This well is ruined. We have all been polluted by this scoundrel. Even death cannot give us peace anymore. The countless souls inside the well argued endlessly. But none of them could answer the question. Finally a deep sigh echoed from the depths of the well. It sounded like all souls speaking together. What a sin! Then the well of infinity fell into complete silence. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe 31 Chapter 75, Chapter 75, does this sound familiar? 1615 words. Death looked both amused and exasperated at the same time. She covered her face with one hand, as if she couldn't decide whether to laugh or cry. The well of infinity is almost broken because of you, she said helplessly. Deadpool waved his hand dismissively. It's not that easy to break something like that. In fact, I think I've improved it. He leaned back comfortably on the cold marble floor of the hall, as if he owned the place. It used to be so boring, he continued. Just some lifeless Q&A machine answering questions all day long. Ask something, get an answer, end of story. He shrugged. Where's the fun in that? Death raised an eyebrow. Deadpool grinned. Now it's like a live comment section. He pointed toward the endless abyss of the well of infinity. Anyone who spends time on the internet knows this. A video without bullet comments is like soda without carbonation. He raised a finger dramatically. Tasteless. Completely soulless. Death shook her head slowly. Nonsense. Deadpool instantly replied, nonsense is also a kind of sense. Death sighed softly, but a faint smile still appeared at the corner of her lips. After a moment she asked again, "Where have you been this time?" Her voice carried a hint of curiosity. "Did you travel to other worlds again?" Deadpool nodded casually. He stretched out on the floor completely, resting his head on his arms like someone lounging on a beach instead of lying in the palace of death. Then he began telling his story. Everything he had experienced recently. The places he had visited. The strange people he had met. The ridiculous battles he had survived. The stories flowed naturally from his mouth, as if he were simply chatting with an old friend. Because in a way, Death truly was one of the few beings he trusted completely. She didn't care about his ugly scars. She didn't care about his insanity. She didn't care about his poverty or ridiculous behavior. She simply liked him for who he was. Of course, Deadpool still edited a few details. Certain scenes involving girls were carefully omitted. Death listened quietly the entire time. Her eyes sparkled with interest. "I really wish I could go to those other universes with you," she said softly. But both of them knew that was impossible. Death was not just a being. She was the embodiment of the concept of death itself. If she ever left this universe, then death itself would disappear. No living thing would ever die again. At first, that might sound wonderful. But the reality would be terrifying. The seriously ill would suffer endlessly without release. Those drifting through space after planetary disasters would wander forever in silent loneliness. Evil people would exploit their immortality to commit endless atrocities. Without death, life would lose balance. The universe would slowly descend into uncontrollable chaos. Suddenly, Deadpool raised his hand. It was slowly becoming transparent. His body was fading. "I guess it's time," he said quietly. "I'm leaving, sweetheart." Death gently touched his face. "Go," she whispered softly. Then she added something strange. "Right now you can belong to anyone. But you alone do not belong to death." She looked at him with deep affection. "But one day you will belong only to me." Death had existed since the beginning of the universe. She had witnessed countless beings who claimed they would live forever. Immortals. Cosmic entities. Yet over billions of years, time eventually defeated them all. One by one. They all came to her. No matter how much they struggled. No matter how powerful they were. Death believed Deadpool would be no exception. One day, he would arrive here permanently. He would sit beside her throne. And remain there until the end of the universe itself. Within moments, Deadpool completely disappeared inside her embrace. The hall became quiet again. Death remained lying on the floor for a while. Her gaze rested on the bandage wrapped around her ring finger. After a long moment, she stood up slowly. Her beautiful form gradually dissolved again. Her flesh vanished. Her skin faded. She once again became the black-robed skeleton queen of death. Then she walked back to her throne step by step. New York City, United States. A man whose entire body looked like it had suffered third-degree burns lay lazily across a sofa. He sighed dramatically. "Does this sound familiar? They say Franklin is everyone's friend," he muttered bitterly. "Then why does this friend abandon me to guard an empty apartment like this?" Deadpool stared blankly at the ceiling. The $61,000 he had earned from the so-called ketchup couple had disappeared almost instantly. Now he was broke again. Spectacularly broke. Gloriously broke. Don't ask where the money went. He definitely didn't spend it on buying a discounted superhero suit. Absolutely not. Deadpool sighed again. Then he pulled out something from his pocket. A sling ring. He slipped it onto his finger. A powerful spiritual force surged from his body and flowed into the ring. Deadpool closed his eyes and concentrated intensely. He tried imagining a bank vault in his mind. Huge steel doors. Piles of money. Mountains of gold bars. Safes full of diamonds. Then he waved his hand dramatically in the air. Sparks flickered briefly. Tiny orange particles appeared. Then they disappeared. Nothing happened. Deadpool opened one eye. Seriously? He scratched his head. Apparently being poor had an unexpected side effect. He couldn't even imagine what a real bank vault looked like. At that moment, ding-dong. The doorbell rang. Deadpool jumped up instantly. A client. He rushed toward the door like a rocket and opened it eagerly. Standing outside was a beautiful blonde woman with blue eyes and a stunning figure. She was dressed like a Wild West cowgirl. "Hi Wade," she said cheerfully. "Long time no see." Deadpool blinked. Then he gasped. "What are you doing here?" The woman smiled. This was Outlaw Inez Temple, a mutant known for her super strength, incredible endurance, and excellent firearm skills. Granted. That description sounded suspiciously similar to 100 other superheroes. But hey, at least she wasn't Hawkeye. Somewhere far away, Hawkeye suddenly sneezed. Back at the door, Inez gently tapped Deadpool's nose. Then she wrapped her arms around him in a warm hug. "Of course I came because I missed you." Deadpool froze for half a second. Then he hugged her back happily. "That's wonderful," he whispered near her ear. "My crazy Inez." Inez laughed. She rubbed her shoulder playfully against him. "Who could possibly be crazier than you, Wade?" Suddenly a dagger appeared at her neck. Deadpool's voice became cold. "Nice try." He stared at her carefully. "Little Wade is already awake." Then he tilted his head. "But before we continue, could you tell me who you really are?" He paused. "Also clarify something for me. Are you a man or a woman?" The woman's expression froze briefly. Then she smiled brilliantly. "You're still so cautious." Deadpool shrugged. "Not cautious. What if someone steals my backdoor key?" She laughed. "So where did I make a mistake?" Deadpool replied casually. "Too many places. You don't actually know Inez." He counted on his fingers. "If the real Inez hugged me like that, my upper body would already look like the daily menu of a Japanese adult film actress." He continued calmly. "Also, Crazy Inez isn't a cute nickname. It's her childhood trauma. The last time I said that phrase to her, she sat on my pelvis and broke it over 500 times." Deadpool sighed. "Can you imagine that combination of pain and pleasure? I have never hated super strength so much." He paused thoughtfully. "Actually, thinking about it now, it wasn't that bad." Then he pointed at her chest. "Also, your body proportions are outdated. Before we last met, Inez got another enhancement. Now they're at least 2 sizes bigger than yours." As soon as he finished speaking, the figure in front of him suddenly changed. Her skin rippled like liquid. Her appearance shifted instantly. Blue skin. Golden eyes. The true identity was revealed. Deadpool blinked. Raven stared at him. Deadpool coughed. "I meant Raven." Then he sighed dramatically. "If you had told me earlier, we could have skipped the whole conversation." Deadpool suddenly remembered something horrifying. Mystique often wandered around completely naked, relying on her shape-shifting ability to imitate clothing. Which meant, when she hugged him earlier. Deadpool bent forward defensively. Little Wade was extremely awake now. Raven ignored him completely. She walked past him and sat on the sofa. Her expression turned serious. "Eric has been captured." Deadpool waved casually. He gets captured every few months. Captured, escaped, captured again. It's basically his hobby now. 2 months earlier, a member of Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants had been arrested. The mutant had attacked a human using his powers. However, the evidence showed that the human had insulted him first. A personal attack. A nasty provocation. Which eventually escalated into violence. Deadpool never understood these situations. Why provoke someone who literally has superpowers? People could act brave online. But face to face, Deadpool would run faster than a rocket. Unfortunately for that mutant, the judge ruled against him. The jury agreed. He was sentenced to prison. But the judge forgot something important. That mutant worked for Magneto. And Magneto did not tolerate disrespect. Soon afterward, the judge who made that ruling was found dead. Not just him. The entire courthouse was reduced to a puddle of twisted flesh and metal. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe31 Chapter 76. Chapter 76. Congratulations, you have successfully proven yourself. 1475 words ahead, 250 plus chapters in Patreon. Heartsuit. What had happened recently was no small matter. A disaster of that scale naturally attracted the attention of the Avengers. As soon as the news spread, S immediately contacted the strongest Avenger currently available. That Avenger was none other than Iron Man, Tony Stark. The battle that followed could only be described with one phrase: the sky itself seemed to tear apart. Of course, technically speaking, it was Tony's sky that fell apart. The entire city of New York saw it. No, actually, the entire world saw it. The footage spread everywhere within hours. With nothing more than a casual wave of his hand, Magneto locked Iron Man in midair. Tony Stark's advanced armor, worth billions of dollars in technology, became completely useless. He floated helplessly in the sky like a metal puppet. Then Magneto did something even worse. He began manipulating the armor like a toy. Iron Man was forced to perform 108 different awkward poses in front of the entire world. Some poses looked like yoga. Some looked like modern dance. A few looked suspiciously like ballet. And one pose strongly resembled someone trying to scratch their back but failing miserably. By the end of the spectacle, Tony Stark's reputation had suffered severe emotional damage. Eventually, the X-Men arrived, along with several other superhero teams. Working together, they finally managed to capture Magneto. To prevent him from manipulating metal again, they imprisoned him inside a specially designed plastic prison facility. No screws. Not even a paperclip. After that day, Tony Stark completely disappeared from the public eye. He had not appeared in public ever since. This was the first time in history that the legendary billionaire playboy genius had gone completely silent. Naturally, Deadpool had also participated in that battle. Participated might be a generous word. His greatest contribution was photographing all 108 poses Tony Stark was forced to perform. He then sold those high-definition photos to the Daily Bugle. Just a small business opportunity. A small profit. Completely harmless. Back in the present moment, Raven, also known as Mystique, finally explained why she had come. "Wade," she said seriously, "I need your help rescuing Eric." Deadpool responded instantly. Not even a second of hesitation. He knew exactly what kind of prison Eric Lensher, Magneto, would be locked inside. The security would be ridiculous. Ridiculous levels of ridiculous. Why would he willingly run into that kind of trouble? Raven frowned. "Wade, if Eric remains imprisoned, the Brotherhood of Mutants will fall into chaos." Deadpool shrugged. "That sounds like a problem for the X-Men. They're already dealing with too many issues." "Then they should recruit more members," Deadpool replied casually. "It's not like they have strict hiring requirements." Raven raised an eyebrow. Who said the X-Men have no recruitment standards? Deadpool pointed directly at her. Aren't you the standard? Then he continued. Your X-Force, on the other hand, has no standards at all. You recruited a guy named Peter, and that guy doesn't even have powers. Deadpool suddenly became furious. Watch your mouth. Peter is special. He has type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Deadpool placed a dramatic hand on his chest. And I have a strong feeling he's about to unlock type 3 diabetes soon. That would complete the diabetes grand slam. Can you achieve something that impressive? Somewhere far away Peter sneezed. Thank you very much. Raven rolled her eyes. Then her body suddenly shifted. Her appearance transformed instantly. Within seconds, she had become Peter himself. She shrugged casually. What's so difficult about that? Deadpool stared silently for a moment. Then he walked forward slowly. He grabbed Raven's hand solemnly. Congratulations. You have successfully proven yourself. You are now officially invited to join X-Force. Raven stared at him in disbelief. I did not come here to join your imaginary superhero club. Wait, this is about Eric. Deadpool immediately covered his ears. I'm not listening. I'm not listening. Turtle chanting scriptures. Then Raven calmly added 3 words. The reward is $1 million. Deadpool instantly removed his hands from his ears. He cupped his face lovingly. My dear. When do we leave? Raven closed her eyes in frustration. She had wasted several minutes arguing for absolutely nothing. Raven reached into her clothing and placed 2 objects on the table. The first item was a syringe filled with glowing blue liquid. The second item was a rolled-up map. Deadpool picked up the syringe curiously. Oh, I know this. This is the serum that gives people a perky butt. He examined it thoughtfully. By the way, where were you hiding it? He tilted his head. Your prison wallet. The shape fits perfectly. Raven's face darkened immediately. She had lived nearly 200 years. Of course she knew what a prison wallet meant. No, she said coldly. This syringe contains the Brotherhood's newest research. The success rate is extremely low, and currently only a few doses exist. Deadpool squinted at the liquid. But you still haven't told me what it actually does. He pointed dramatically. Riddleman, get out of Gotham. Raven sighed. It's a shape-shifting serum derived from my DNA. After injection, you will gain the ability to change your appearance freely for about 1 hour. Just like I can. Deadpool froze. Then he spoke slowly. Are you telling me I can personally transform into Bernadette Peters with 4 sizes larger than what you had earlier? Raven sighed deeply. You could transform into the President of the United States if you want. Deadpool began gesturing excitedly. Oh my God. I'm getting excited again. What if I turn into Jean Grey and go on a date with Logan? Or transform into Professor Xavier and flirt with Eric? Deadpool leaned forward conspiratorially. I've always suspected those 2 have something going on. Raven stared at him. If you try that, she said calmly, Logan will chop you into meat paste and feed you to dogs. And Eric will seal you inside a metal coffin and throw you into the ocean. Also, this serum is for infiltration, not entertainment. Deadpool sighed. So what's the price? Deadpool knew something important. After Magneto's capture, many members of the Brotherhood likely had hidden motives. But Raven? If anyone were capable of betrayal, it would probably be her. In many ways, Raven was similar to Nick Fury. Both suffered from extreme paranoia. Both trusted almost no one. The Brotherhood had simply been a place for her to hide, after being rejected by humans. Which meant one thing. This serum probably came with a cost. A very serious cost. Raven spoke calmly. The serum temporarily alters your DNA. For 1 hour, you gain my shape-shifting ability. But when the drug wears off, your DNA may experience uncontrollable mutations while returning to normal. Deadpool blinked. So basically, I might get cancer. He snapped his fingers. No wonder you came to me. Deadpool was actually the perfect candidate. After all, he already had cancer. Raven neither confirmed nor denied his conclusion. Instead, she unrolled the map. She pointed to 2 locations in the Atlantic Ocean. There are currently 2 prisons capable of holding Eric. One was built by us, the other was built by the United States government. We don't yet know which prison Eric is in. She tapped the map again. The other Brotherhood members will create distractions around both locations. You and I will each infiltrate one prison. If either of us successfully rescues Eric, you will receive $1 million. And if we fail? Deadpool asked. You'll still receive $250,000. Deadpool's eyes widened. He began thinking intensely. Then he said slowly, from a quantum mechanics perspective, if I stay home and simply tell you I left, there's a 50% chance I receive $1 million. And a 50% chance I receive $250,000. Deadpool placed his hands on his hips proudly. I'm impressed by my own intelligence. He shook his head. That stupid system must have had a bug when it rated my intelligence as only 10 points. Raven stared at him. Yes, she said calmly. But if we discover you stayed home, you will have a 100% chance of being hunted down by the Brotherhood. Deadpool thought for a moment. That's terrifying. Can I request that Hedgehogman be the only one sent after me? Raven frowned. Deadpool replied seriously. I've always been afraid of prickly things. Afraid of what? Afraid that my OCD will kick in, and I'll start pulling out all his quills. Raven frowned. How would you pull out one too many? Deadpool answered casually. He'll grow one extra, if he enjoys it too much. Raven stared at him in silence. Then she sighed deeply. She should never have started this conversation. Chapter 77, Chapter 77, Name Your Price. 1508 words. Far out in the Atlantic Ocean, not far from the coast of New York State, there sat a small, lonely island. From the outside, it looked peaceful. The wind was gentle, the waves calm. Anyone flying overhead would see nothing unusual, just another untouched patch of land surrounded by endless blue sea. It looked like a pristine, uninhabited island. But that peaceful surface was only an illusion. Beneath the island lay something far more sinister. The entire island had long ago been hollowed out from within. Deep underground, layer after layer of prison facilities had been constructed. Cold concrete corridors stretched endlessly. Rows of prison cells lined the walls. Security checkpoints stood at nearly every corner. Teams of armed guards marched through the halls carrying rifles, their uniforms marked with the emblem of a soaring eagle. Surveillance cameras were everywhere. On the ceilings. In the corners. Along every hallway. Together they formed an almost perfect surveillance network. Any abnormal movement inside the prison would trigger an immediate and overwhelming response. But the deeper levels of the prison were different. Very different. The bottom 3 floors had been constructed entirely from high-density plastic materials. Not a single trace of metal existed anywhere in those levels. No screws. No metal pipes. The designers had gone to extreme lengths to ensure that metal manipulation would be impossible. The second and third lowest floors were currently empty. Only small patrol teams guarded them. But the very bottom level was not empty. At the center of that lowest floor stood a single enormous cell. The cell was shaped like a giant hemisphere. Its walls glowed faintly with a translucent gray-white sheen. The ceiling and floor were made of the exact same material. It looked less like a prison cell and more like a sealed laboratory chamber. Inside the chamber, there was almost nothing. Just a single chair. And a toilet. Sitting on that chair was an elderly man with white hair. His eyes were closed. He sat completely still. If not for the faint rise and fall of his chest, anyone might have assumed he had already died. It was difficult to believe that the entire lower prison structure had been designed just to imprison this one old man. But that old man was no ordinary prisoner. He was Eric Lenscher, the man the world knew as Magneto. Suddenly, the cell door opened. A guard walked inside carrying a meal tray. Eric Lenscher, the guard said coldly. Time to eat. There was no respect in his voice. No fear either. He tossed the tray onto the ground carelessly. Food spilled across the floor. Then he turned around and walked away without another word. Magneto did not react. He remained seated. His eyes stayed closed. He did not even glance at the food lying on the floor. For several moments nothing happened. Then a loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the entire prison. Red emergency lights flashed across the corridors. The guards froze. Level 1 alert. Level 1 alert. Unknown forces are attacking the prison. All off-duty personnel immediately arm yourselves and report to the east coast of the island. Repeat Level 1 alert. The prison guard who had delivered the food looked terrified. He glanced back at Magneto one last time. Then he ran out of the cell without hesitation. Only after the guard disappeared did Magneto finally open his eyes. Slowly, calmly, he bent down and picked up the meal tray. Then he began eating quietly. As if the chaos outside had nothing to do with him. On the island's surface, near the center of the forest, a red and black figure dragged an unconscious guard into a patch of bushes. Deadpool released his hand from the guard's mouth. The guard immediately panicked. Don't kill me. Hydra forever. I know everything about the prison. Please don't kill me. Deadpool blinked. Buddy, he said slowly. Could you try being a little tougher? At this rate you won't survive long enough for the honey trap scene. Then he paused. Something about that voice sounded familiar. Deadpool pulled off the guard's mask. He turned the man's face toward him. The guard blinked. Deadpool stared. It really is you. He shook his head in disbelief. Aren't you working for HYDRA? How did you end up as a prison guard in AU? He narrowed his eyes. Don't tell me they offer full dental insurance here. The unlucky guard was none other than Bob Dobalina, Deadpool's old Hydra acquaintance. Bob had originally joined Hydra for a very simple reason. They offered dental insurance. Not even full coverage. Just partial coverage. But that was still enough. Bob sighed miserably. Don't even ask. The second lowest floor of this prison is holding a major Hydra figure. They sent several of us here as undercover agents. The plan is to rescue him. Deadpool nodded thoughtfully. Well, look on the bright side. At least Captain America isn't smashing your face with his shield every day. Bob nodded reluctantly. Then he asked. What about you, Wade? Deadpool shrugged. I accepted some dirty money from the Brotherhood of Mutants. My job is to rescue a crazy old man. He leaned closer. Tell me something. Is that old man here? Bob scratched his head. You mean Magneto? I heard rumors he might be held on the lowest level of this prison. But I'm not sure if he was actually brought here. Bob wasn't an important person. Whether in Hydra or the prison, he was just a small-time grunt. He had no access to real classified information. Then Bob lifted his collar. I should warn you about something. Around his neck was a thick metal collar. Everyone inside the prison has to wear one of these. If you don't have a fake one ready, you won't even get through the front gate. The collar was specifically designed to suppress mutant powers. If Deadpool wore it, his abilities would likely be sealed. His healing factor. His strength. Everything. Only his cancer might remain active. But that was before. Things had changed. Deadpool had the T-virus now. But the interaction between the T-virus and his healing factor was complicated. If the collar suppressed one but not the other, things could become extremely dangerous. Very dangerous. Deadpool shook his head. He absolutely could not wear that collar. You don't need to worry about that, Deadpool said casually. Just tell me everything you know about the prison. Bob crossed his arms. Name your price. Deadpool froze. His eyes widened. You're actually asking me for money? Bob shrugged. What's wrong with that? Aren't we brothers? Brothers from different mothers. Bob replied calmly. Even brothers settle accounts clearly. You taught me that. Deadpool clutched his chest dramatically. You wound me. Then he asked suspiciously, so will you accept dirty money from the Brotherhood? Bob nodded immediately. Of course. No one hates Franklin. Slang for you, $100 bills. Bob then explained the prison's structure and defense systems in detail. Deadpool listened carefully. Finally he nodded. I'm about to do something. Are you ready? Bob sighed. As long as it's not about refusing to pay me. Deadpool smiled. Of course not. Bob relaxed slightly. Deadpool added casually, refusing to pay is something you do when the payment time arrives. Bob stared. Bob's eyes rolled back. He collapsed unconscious. Deadpool calmly took Bob's ID card, communicator, and rifle. Then he dragged Bob deeper into the bushes and hid him carefully. A short distance away. Inside the dense forest near the prison entrance. Deadpool took out a syringe filled with glowing blue liquid. It was the serum Raven had given him. He stared at it quietly. Then he sighed. What's meant to come will come. Without hesitation he stabbed the syringe into his neck. The liquid entered his bloodstream instantly. Pain exploded through his body. Deadpool gasped. Raven had conveniently forgotten to mention one detail. This injection hurt like hell. Soon, however, the pain faded. And Deadpool felt something incredible. A strange new sensation. It felt as if he could suddenly sense every cell in his body. Every strand of DNA. Every tiny structure. And more importantly, he could change them at will. Deadpool extended his hand. His palm twisted and reshaped itself. Everything shifted like liquid. His hand turned into a strange mosaic-like structure before returning to normal. Deadpool whistled. He stored his combat suit inside his system space. Then his body began changing. His skin rippled like water. His shape shifted. His face transformed. Within seconds Deadpool had become someone else entirely. He looked down. He couldn't see his toes. Curious, he reached down and pinched. Feels amazing. He sighed. But the mission came first. Deadpool closed his eyes. He recalled Bob's appearance carefully. 2 tears slowly slid down the corners of his eyes. Goodbye. My dearest. 3 Pietro. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe31 Chapter 78. Chapter 78. Prometheus didn't have a good ending. 1398 words. In the blink of an eye, Deadpool's skin rippled again. His entire body reshaped itself. Muscles shifted. Bones rearranged. Skin stretched and reformed. Within seconds, the transformation was complete. Standing there now was Bob, wearing a prison guard uniform. Even the power-inhibiting collar around his neck had been perfectly replicated. If Bob's own mother had walked in at that moment, she probably would have stared at both of them for several minutes before realizing something was wrong. Deadpool took a few steps forward. Then suddenly he stopped. He awkwardly shuffled his legs. This feels weird. Visually, he looked fully dressed. But physically, he wasn't wearing anything. His brain could see the clothes, but his skin couldn't feel them. It was like walking around naked while wearing invisible pajamas. Deadpool sighed. Never mind. The mission comes first. Later, maybe he could trick the Brotherhood of Mutants into giving him a few more doses of that serum. Then he could finally enjoy seeing Bernadette Peters again. He straightened his posture and walked toward the prison entrance. However, Deadpool did not notice something happening inside his body. The blue serum he had injected had not completely dissolved. A small portion of it had been pulled deep into his body. And deeper. Until it reached the very core of his internal system. There, the substance merged with a small sky-blue gas cloud. The cloud trembled slightly. Its color deepened by half a shade. Then it stopped rotating completely. And remained silent. At the prison entrance, the scene was chaotic. Emergency sirens still echoed across the island. Vehicles rushed back and forth. Injured guards were being carried on stretchers. Blood-soaked uniforms. Bandaged limbs. Some guards groaned in pain as they were rushed toward the prison infirmary. Meanwhile, other guards fully armed with rifles and combat gear were heading toward the battlefield on the east coast of the island. Some guards even wore mechanical flight armor, with flames blasting from their backs as they flew directly into combat. It was clear the United States government had invested enormous resources into protecting this prison. In the distance, one injured guard limped toward the gate. His left leg was soaked in blood. The guards stationed at the gate stared in shock. "Holy crap," one of them said. "Brother. Why didn't you take a ride back?" The injured guard pointed angrily at his leg. "Do you seriously want me to drag this leg around while chatting with you?" Then he said, "Let's make a deal. How about you let me inside for treatment first? And later I'll tell you the thrilling story of how I single-handedly fought 3 elite members of the Mutant Brotherhood. Only to be shot in the leg by a clumsy teammate. And then couldn't find a car to bring me back to base." He placed a dramatic hand over his heart. "I swear the story will be more exciting than any Marvel movie. Except maybe the Deadpool trilogy." The gate guard clearly had no idea what his colleague was talking about. But he quickly recovered and began the verification process. Identification card. Iris scan. Fingerprint scan. Collar integrity check. Everything matched perfectly. "All right," the guard said. "You're clear." "Thank you very much," Deadpool replied politely. "I wish you a wonderful day." He limped through the gate. After walking a few meters, Deadpool suddenly collapsed against a wall. He clutched his thigh dramatically. "It hurts so much." He slowly slid down the wall and sat on the floor. "Can someone tell me where the damn infirmary is? It would be even better if someone could bring me a self-driving wheelchair. And maybe a hair clipper too. I could cosplay Professor Charles Xavier for a while." A nearby guard hurried over. "What happened?" Deadpool stared at him. "Isn't it obvious? I got shot on the front line. And I desperately need a hero to carry me to the infirmary." He looked up dramatically. "Will you be my hero?" The guard helped him stand up. "The guard infirmary upstairs is already full," he explained. "I'll take you to the prisoner infirmary downstairs." Deadpool nodded gratefully. "Thank you." You are the Prometheus of my life. The guard laughed. Can you change the metaphor? Prometheus didn't have a very good ending. Deadpool replied calmly. Neither will you. The guard blinked. The elevator doors opened. Suddenly Deadpool broke free from the guard. He stumbled out of the elevator clutching his injured leg and screamed, "He's a spy. Catch him. I can't feel my leg." The entire hallway exploded into chaos. An injured guard had just stumbled out of the elevator claiming the other guard was a traitor. Everyone's instinctive reaction was immediate. Grab the suspect first. Within seconds the poor guard was pinned to the ground. Prometheus struggled desperately. I'm innocent. But no one was listening. Meanwhile, Deadpool had already slipped quietly into a nearby office. Inside the office sat a single person. A slender Asian woman wearing glasses and a black suit. She slowly raised her eyes. Her gaze was cold and sharp. Deadpool tilted his head. Let me guess. You wouldn't happen to be Yuriko Oyama, right? Also known as Lady Deathstrike. One of Wolverine's most dangerous enemies. The woman who had once been filled with liquid adamantium by Logan. The woman removed her glasses slowly. Then 10 razor-sharp metal claws extended from her fingertips. Her answer was clear. Deadpool shrugged. At least I don't have to waste time looking for the prison's high-ranking officials. Lady Deathstrike definitely had high authority in this facility. She stepped forward. Her claws gleamed. Deadpool quickly raised his hands. Give me a second. I want to change into a more appropriate form before we fight. Lady Deathstrike stared at him suspiciously. Then she watched something unbelievable happen. Deadpool's body began shrinking. His muscles shifted. His skeleton restructured. Within seconds he transformed into a short, muscular figure. Only about 1.6 meters tall. Deadpool stretched his arms. I'm ready now. He sighed. Unfortunately I can't grow claws like you. So I'll have to use these. 2 carbon steel knives appeared in his hands. He glanced at his watch. I only have about 50 minutes before the serum wears off. So let's make this quick. Lady Deathstrike said nothing. Her body blurred. She appeared in front of him instantly. Her 10 claws stabbed toward Deadpool's chest. Deadpool sighed. Then he muttered, when will you people finally understand? The silent type is outdated. Meanwhile, back near the elevator, Prometheus the unlucky guard was still pinned to the ground. He shouted desperately. I'm innocent. That guy was the spy. I demand to see the surveillance footage. I want to see the warden. The other guards looked at each other awkwardly. Once the initial panic faded, they weren't entirely sure who to believe anymore. Then one guard asked, where did the injured guy go? Everyone looked around. A moment later someone shouted, check the surveillance. Someone infiltrated the prison. Just then the office door opened. Lady Deathstrike stepped out. Her black suit was soaked in blood. It looked as though she had just walked out of a slaughterhouse. Her cold gaze swept across the guards. No one dared speak. Under their fearful stares, she calmly took out a white handkerchief and wiped the blood from her face. Then she walked toward the elevator. Everyone instinctively stepped aside. Normally they wouldn't be this frightened of her. After all, they were trained prison guards. But at that moment, her blood-stained appearance was simply too terrifying. Inside the elevator, Lady Deathstrike pressed the button for the lowest floor. Before the doors closed, she gave one final order. I'm going down to check on the important prisoners. The infiltrator inside that room has self-healing abilities. He won't die anytime soon. Put an inhibitor collar on him, and detain him using the highest security level. She paused. Then added coldly, the prisoner also has the ability to transform into others. No matter what he looks like. Do not trust him. Wait for my return. The guards nodded nervously. Yes, ma'am. The elevator doors slowly closed. And Lady Deathstrike descended toward the deepest level of the prison. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe 31 Chapter 79. Chapter 79, Treating You Gently Like a Child 1864 words. As the elevator doors slid shut, the prison guards outside all let out long breaths of relief. Only after Lady Deathstrike had gone did they feel safe enough to move again. Then, almost at once, they rushed into her office. The moment they stepped inside, every one of them froze. There was blood everywhere. It covered the floor, splashed across the walls, and stained the desk and cabinets in thick dark smears. The whole room looked less like an office and more like the aftermath of a butcher's workshop. And in the center of the room, lying twisted on the floor, was something none of them had expected to see. A small metallic skeleton. Or at least, that was what it looked like at first glance. But once they looked more closely, it became clear that this was not a simple machine, nor was it a normal body stripped of flesh. Inside the metal frame was a grotesque fusion of mechanical components and biological tissue. Wires, artificial organs, synthetic nerves, pulsing flesh, and steel supports were all tangled together in a horrifying mess. Even worse, those severed mechanical organic parts were still twitching. Rhythmically. As if whatever it was had not fully died yet. The sight sent a chill through the entire group. Then one of the guards, Prometheus, the poor fool Deadpool had framed minutes earlier, felt his anger flare all over again. This thing had ruined his life for the day. It had tricked him, framed him, and nearly gotten him beaten half to death by his own co-workers. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. So, while the others were distracted, he suddenly lunged forward and delivered a furious kick straight at the skeletal remains. The sound that echoed through the room was not the soft crunch of breaking bones. It was the hard, brutal sound of metal striking something harder. Prometheus immediately hopped backward, clutching his foot, and howling in pain. The other guards turned to look at him, then at the skeleton, and then at each other. That was no ordinary frame. That was adamantium. And adamantium was not something a human foot was meant to challenge. For a moment, no one said anything. Then one of the guards muttered, "So even in this state, it's still that tough." Another looked down at the twitching body and swallowed hard. At first, they had assumed Lady Deathstrike had spared the intruder because she wanted to interrogate him later. But looking at the evidence now, a more unsettling possibility emerged. Maybe she hadn't been able to kill him at all. That thought was enough to make the room feel colder. No one wanted to take chances. Without wasting any more time, they pulled out a spare inhibitor collar and locked it around the skeleton's neck. Then, following Lady Deathstrike's exact instructions, they transported the remains to the prison's highest security holding cell. As for Prometheus, whose foot now felt like it had been smashed with a sledgehammer, two guards dragged him away toward the infirmary. He cursed all the way down the hall. Meanwhile, inside the elevator descending toward the lowest level of the prison, Lady Deathstrike leaned against the wall with her eyes half closed, looking calm and composed. Outwardly, she appeared as cold and elegant as ever. Inside, however, Deadpool was practically exploding with joy. This felt amazing. No, not just amazing. Ridiculously amazing. The person standing in the elevator now was not the real Lady Deathstrike at all. It was Deadpool, disguised with Raven's shape-shifting serum. And the torn-apart metallic skeleton left behind in the office. That was the real Lady Deathstrike. Deadpool had ambushed her, carved her up with his carbon steel knives, and then taken her place so smoothly it almost brought tears to his eyes. He could already imagine what would happen next. Eventually, Lady Deathstrike would recover enough to wake up. She would discover that she was wearing an inhibitor collar. she would realize she had been thrown into a maximum security prison cell. Deadpool nearly laughed out loud just picturing it. Would she stand there with that icy, expressionless face and say, "I'm innocent"? Would she demand surveillance footage? Would she insist on seeing Stryker personally? Would she try to explain that she was actually Lady Deathstrike, only for everyone to ignore her because the real Lady Deathstrike had just walked downstairs? The thought was so funny that Deadpool nearly bit his tongue trying not to laugh. His cheeks hurt. Then he touched his face. At the moment, he was still using Lady Deathstrike's face. He probably shouldn't grin too much. It would ruin the character. Still, one thing bothered him. Lady Deathstrike was not a pure mutant in the traditional sense. She was more like a technological hybrid, a woman fused with machinery, enhanced beyond normal biology. That meant his carbon steel knives, while very effective against healing abilities, could not completely shut down her mechanical side. That immediately made him think of another old acquaintance. A one-eyed jerk with a glowing eye, a robotic arm, and enough daddy issues to fill 3 timelines. That's right. Then, because Deadpool's brain never stopped producing nonsense, the thought quickly jumped sideways. Cable was played by Josh Brolin. Thanos was also played by Josh Brolin. Thanos was in love with death. Deadpool was also in love with death. And whenever he wanted, Deadpool could go to the realm of death and spend romantic time with her. Which meant, by a certain deeply unreasonable but emotionally satisfying logic, it felt like he had stolen his buddy's crush. Deadpool adjusted his pants slightly and sighed. "Man, this is getting me even more excited." Then he paused. Little Wade was currently out of service. Temporarily unavailable. No problem. After this mission, he would definitely go visit Death again and make up for lost time. At that moment, the elevator reached the bottom floor. The doors opened. Instantly, several rifles were raised and aimed straight at the elevator. The guards outside had been ready for trouble. But when they saw Lady Deathstrike step forward, the weapons lowered just as quickly. One of the guards, clearly the captain on duty, stepped forward and saluted respectfully. "Koyama," he said. "How may I assist you?" Deadpool kept his face cold and his voice colder. "An enemy infiltrated the prison and was captured by me just now. I need to personally confirm the status of the prisoner below." He delivered the line so smoothly that even he was impressed. Honestly, if someone ever adapted this into a movie, and he didn't win an Oscar, it would be proof of corruption in the entertainment industry. At once, a tiny red version of Deadpool appeared on his left shoulder in his imagination. Little Devil Deadpool crossed his arms and scoffed. Even if they filmed this scene, it would still be Lady Deathstrike's actress getting the credit. Do you really think Marvel would pay for expensive full-body CGI just so you could have acting recognition? Deadpool's eyebrow twitched. Then he raised his hand and flicked the tiny devil right off his shoulder. "Damn you," he muttered internally. "Why are you making sense?" There went the Oscar. Gone again. The prison captain hesitated. Deadpool's expression became even icier. The captain immediately straightened. "Of course. Understood." Then, in a lower voice, he leaned closer and said, with the kind of conspiratorial tone that instantly made Deadpool suspicious, as expected of someone Mr. Stryker values, "Ms. Very thorough." Deadpool's brain hit the brakes. What exactly had he supposedly meant? Why did this guy sound like he understood some deeper meaning that Deadpool himself did not understand? This was exactly the kind of thing he hated. Everywhere. People who acted like they knew the plot before explaining it. Deadpool screamed internally. "Riddlers, get out of Gotham." Outwardly, though, he only gave a small nod and said in a cool voice, "Good. Then you understand." The captain nodded eagerly, clearly believing he had passed some invisible test. After another round of identity verification, the guards stepped aside and cleared a path. And ahead of Deadpool was the final stretch. At the very bottom of the prison, in the special containment chamber, Magneto Eric Lencher sat alone in silence. A large blue transparent force field surrounded him, enclosing an area of roughly 100 square meters. It shimmered softly, creating a barrier between him and the rest of the world. Everything around him was plastic. Plastic chair. Plastic table. Plastic toilet. Plastic sink. Plastic walls. Plastic everything. Deadpool couldn't help muttering under his breath as he approached, as expected of the world's greatest metal seller. This place is so plastic I feel like I just stepped into one of those cheap fake future sets. He stepped up to the edge of the force field and waved brightly. Hi, Eric. I'm here to save you. Magneto did not move. He didn't even blink. He sat there like a statue carved from disappointment. Deadpool looked down at himself. I'm still using the wrong face. His body rippled, and in an instant he returned to his usual tall, broad-shouldered form. There, he said. Still nothing. Deadpool frowned. No answer. Do I seriously have to turn into Raven before you acknowledge me? He spread his hands. Come on, don't be so stubborn. It shouldn't matter who rescues you as long as you get rescued. Then, in a coaxing tone like he was talking to a grumpy toddler, he added, worst-case scenario. After we escape, I'll lock you in a room and wait for Raven or Charles to come pick you up. Just to make the whole thing weirder, he transformed his clothes into a priest's robe and made the sign of the cross over himself. Then he said solemnly, don't worry. I swear in God's name, I will treat you gently. Like a child. At last, Magneto opened his eyes. He looked at Deadpool calmly. Too calmly. There was no surprise in his expression. No confusion. No relief. Just stillness. Then he said, I've been waiting for you. Deadpool's smile faded. A bad feeling rose in his chest. The kind of bad feeling that usually appeared 3 seconds before everything exploded. So he acted immediately. No more talking. No more jokes. He drew his sword and slashed at the exposed conduits feeding energy into the force field. The tubes snapped cleanly. The force field flickered. Then it began to dissolve. But as it faded, Deadpool's pupils shrank. Because it wasn't just the field that disappeared. Magneto disappeared too. The chair was empty. The chamber was empty. And before Deadpool could even process what had happened, a much larger force field erupted around him. It rose from the floor in a dome, sealing off the entire area and trapping him inside. Deadpool stared at it for half a second. Then he shouted at the top of his lungs, son of a bitch. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe31. Chapter 80, Chapter 80. Do you believe it? 1248 words. Deadpool realized something the moment the force field trapped him. He had walked straight into a trap. It all made sense now. The United States government had originally wanted custody of Magneto from S. But they had failed. Which meant the real Magneto should still be locked inside AS facility, not this prison. So instead of imprisoning him here, they had built something else. A carefully designed cage meant to capture anyone foolish enough to attempt rescuing Magneto. And Deadpool had walked right into it. Suddenly all the strange details from earlier made perfect sense. The prison captain. His suspicious tone. The strange half-sentences. The way he seemed to know something Deadpool didn't. Clearly the man had been aware that the Magneto in the cell below was a fake. That explained the cryptic remarks he had made earlier. Deadpool sighed heavily. I should have noticed sooner. He lowered his head and pressed the button on his teleportation belt. Nothing happened. No flash of light. No sudden escape. No body parts left behind on the floor. Just silence. Deadpool stared at the device. Of course. The government had anticipated that too. The entire area must have been filled with space interference technology designed to prevent teleportation. Which made sense. If teleportation were allowed, the Brotherhood could simply invite Nightcrawler or some random sorcerer from Kamartaj, and they would break into the prison in 5 minutes. Deadpool rubbed his temples. Now the situation had reversed. He had come here to rescue someone. Instead, he was the one trapped. He only hoped Raven had managed to rescue Magneto somewhere else. Because if she hadn't, then the best outcome from this mission would only be $250,000. And honestly, that felt like a terrible deal. Deadpool pulled out his pistol. 2 shots struck the force field. The barrier rippled like water disturbed by stones. Then the bullets fell harmlessly to the floor. Deadpool immediately drew his dual swords and lunged forward. Steel flashed. He slashed again and again. But the force field remained untouched. It rippled slightly with each strike, then returned to its original smooth surface. The blades might as well have been slicing through air. Deadpool stopped and stared at the barrier. What the hell? How did they build such a ridiculous turtle shell? This thing is harder than France's national defense strategy. He stepped back. Then calmly pulled out an RPG rocket launcher from his system storage. Let's see how you like this. The explosion shook the chamber. Smoke filled the air. But when the smoke cleared, the barrier was still there. Perfectly intact. Only gentle ripples moved across its surface before fading away. Deadpool dropped the empty launcher. He sighed loudly and shouted toward the ceiling. Is anyone there? Because there's $250,000 of Brotherhood dirty money sitting right here. All you have to do is open this force field. Limited offer. First come, first served. No refunds. For a moment, the prison remained silent. Then clap. Slow applause echoed through the chamber. Real applause. One person clapping their own hands. Deadpool turned toward the elevator. A man stepped out. He wore a black suit. His hair was white. His build was sturdy. He looked about 50 years old. Deadpool groaned. Oh, for F********'s sake. You again. William Stryker. William Stryker was infamous. The sworn enemy of the X-Men. Or more accurately the enemy of all mutants. A man driven by hatred after his mutant son accidentally caused the death of his wife. Since then, Stryker had dedicated his entire life to eradicating mutants. Stryker tilted his head thoughtfully. You've changed, Raven. You didn't swear so much before. He smiled faintly. Perhaps it's because you've been spending time around Wade Wilson. Maybe you've been influenced. He circled the force field slowly. I do wonder why you chose his appearance. To surprise Eric. He chuckled. Perhaps it was meant to frighten him. Then his expression turned colder. But it doesn't matter. You should never have come here. For us. He paused. You are 1,000,000 times more valuable than Eric. For years, Mystique had been a nightmare for governments. Her ability to shapeshift allowed her to impersonate officials, steal secrets, and expose classified information. Stryker had been furious about it. But powerless. Now, however, if Mystique was truly trapped here, that problem would finally be solved. Even better if he could study her mutation. If he could reproduce that ability. He could infiltrate mutant organizations himself. The X-Men. The Hellfire Club. The Brotherhood. The future suddenly looked incredibly promising. Deadpool raised a finger. Excuse me. Stryker waved magnanimously. Go ahead. I'm in no hurry. We have plenty of time. Deadpool cleared his throat. Is there any chance that I'm actually Deadpool and not Raven? Stryker immediately laughed. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Raven, stop joking. Before coming here, I reviewed the surveillance footage. You clearly used shape-shifting abilities during your infiltration. Deadpool rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Since you checked the footage, aren't you curious about something? Stryker frowned. Curious about what? Deadpool grinned. If I were Raven, how exactly did I manage to defeat Lady Deathstrike? Stryker froze. Mystique was skilled. Dangerous. But Lady Deathstrike was a completely different level. She fought Wolverine regularly. If Raven had truly defeated her, something didn't add up. Stryker's confident smile slowly disappeared. Then his face turned red. Impossible. You're lying. Deadpool pointed at him smugly. He's getting nervous. Deadpool shrugged. Let's pretend I'm lying. Stryker took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. His expression hardened again. Whether you are Raven or Wade, you clearly possess shape-shifting abilities. In that sense, my plan has already succeeded halfway. As for your real identity, we'll find out once you're strapped to an operating table. Deadpool laughed. Capture me. He drew his swords again. The blades flashed as he slashed the ground twice, leaving deep marks in the floor. Step inside. I'll let you try. Then he glanced at his watch. Let's see. Because I copied Raven's ability through special means. He tapped the screen. You've got about 35 minutes before the power runs out. Plenty of time to catch me and draw some blood samples. Stryker's expression darkened. If this really was Deadpool, capturing him quickly would be almost impossible. Especially since Lady Deathstrike was currently out of action. But Stryker quickly smiled again. Do you really think I have no solution? His eyes turned cold. Your self-healing ability. You will regret having it. He pressed the communicator on his ear. Bring down experimental weapon number 12. If normal methods couldn't capture Deadpool, then they would simply destroy him first. Half-kill him. Then drag the remains into the laboratory later. After all, Deadpool wouldn't die anyway. But before the order could finish echoing, Deadpool's body suddenly rippled again. His form shifted. His skin turned blue. His hair became red. Within seconds, he had transformed into Mystique. The blue-skinned beauty raised one eyebrow and smiled playfully. Are you really so sure that I'm Wade? She crossed her arms. Because honestly, I'm actually Raven. My powers just evolved. Now I can copy other people's abilities too. She tilted her head. Then asked softly, do you believe it? Stryker stared. His brain stopped working. Then he shouted, damn it. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe31. Chapter 81, Chapter 81, Escape 1484 words. William Stryker stood in front of the reinforced observation window, staring at the figure inside the blue protective shield. The person inside looked exactly like Raven, the infamous shape-shifting mutant also known as Mystique. But Stryker's instinct screamed that something was wrong. His eyes were filled with suspicion, and his expression darkened like a storm cloud. He was facing a dilemma. If he ordered the guards to use heavy weapons and it truly was Raven inside the shield, then killing her would be an enormous loss. A living Raven was incredibly valuable to his research. Her shape-shifting genetics were the key to several of Stryker's secret projects. If Raven died before he fully understood her mutation, Years of research could collapse instantly. But if he hesitated, and the person inside the shield turned out to be Deadpool, then the consequences could be just as disastrous. Outside the prison facility, the Mutant Brotherhood was already launching a coordinated attack. They were trying to break in and rescue Magneto. Stryker simply didn't have enough manpower to deal with both threats simultaneously. If Deadpool escaped inside the prison, chaos would spread instantly. A prison riot. Mutant prisoners breaking loose. Guards overwhelmed. The entire facility could fall apart within minutes. And to make matters worse, his strongest fighter inside the prison, Lady Deathstrike, was currently out of commission. Earlier, Deadpool had poisoned her during their fight. Even if she recovered, Stryker knew the truth. The previous battle had proven it clearly. In a one-on-one fight, Lady Deathstrike could not defeat Deadpool. That lunatic mercenary was simply too unpredictable. Stryker clenched his jaw. For the first time in a long time, he felt trapped. Inside the shield, the disguised Deadpool looked completely relaxed. He leaned casually against the barrier and waved at Stryker with exaggerated friendliness. "How about this?" Deadpool said cheerfully. $250,000. You open the shield, and we become friends. Stryker didn't respond. Deadpool shrugged dramatically. "Hey, don't think that's too little." He gestured toward the distant battle outside. "Magneto might not even be rescued yet. And the Brotherhood only paid me dirty money anyway. That's all I got." Stryker's face remained cold. Just then beep. His earpiece vibrated. Stryker pressed the receiver and listened quietly. Only a few seconds passed. Then his expression changed. Slowly, he looked back at the figure inside the shield. His eyes became icy. "You are Wade," he said coldly. Deadpool immediately spread his hands. "All right, you got me." Even though the voice in Stryker's earpiece had been quiet, Deadpool's enhanced hearing still caught pieces of the conversation. Apparently, the real Raven had already been spotted somewhere else. That meant the one inside the shield was definitely not her. Deadpool grinned beneath the mask. "Good news," he said casually. "I just earned $1 million from the Brotherhood." He paused. "Bad news." "I haven't actually received the money yet." Stryker stared at him like he was looking at a lab rat. "You won't have the chance to spend it." Deadpool tilted his head. Stryker continued calmly. "But if you cooperate and tell me how Raven allowed you to copy her abilities, then maybe we can still negotiate." Deadpool blinked. "Oh, that's easy." Suddenly his body shifted. His appearance transformed back into Wade Wilson. The red mask disappeared, revealing his scarred face. His eyes narrowed slightly as he pretended to recall something. "It all started with a very beautiful night." Stryker immediately interrupted him. "Impossible." His voice was filled with contempt. "Mutant abilities are not computer programs. They cannot simply be copied. If it were genetic manipulation, there might be a theoretical possibility. But not through whatever nonsense you're suggesting." Deadpool smiled innocently. He shrugged. "That's simple." He pointed at himself. "Raven and my dad had me." Silence filled the room. Stryker's expression froze. Then his face turned completely black. Inside his mind, he exploded with anger. This bastard. At that moment, Stryker made a firm decision. Once Deadpool was captured, he would sew his mouth shut permanently. Then he would place his head inside a sealed container filled with thousands of flies. Let the flies crawl into his mouth and nose. Let him scream forever. Deadpool tilted his head. "My sixth sense tells me you're thinking some very evil thoughts." Stryker replied calmly. "Nothing evil. I'm simply thinking about how to torture you after you're captured." Deadpool nodded thoughtfully. "Oh, torture. Need suggestions? He leaned closer to the shield conspiratorially. Actually, I'm most afraid of blonde, blue-eyed hot women. A whole group of them. You have no idea how terrifying that is. I once experienced it personally. Deadpool placed a hand dramatically on his heart. Little Wade cried 3 times that night. Stryker stared at him silently. Then he let out a cold laugh. Deadpool sighed. All right then. At least tell me how many torture stages there are. So I can mentally prepare. Stryker spoke without emotion. There is no honey trap. There is only torture. Endless torture. Until you reveal everything you know. Deadpool sighed heavily. That's terrible news. He rubbed his chin. How about we compromise? Forget the group. Just give me one. He pointed thoughtfully. I like that one. Yuriko Oyama. Female teacher type. Office lady vibe. I love that. Stryker nodded calmly. Very well. I will have Yuriko stab you into a hornet's nest with her claws. He paused. That will be the 3rd stage. Because compared to what comes after, that is merciful. Deadpool dramatically gasped. Holy crap. He clutched his chest. Deadpool was almost scared to death. Then he suddenly grinned. But you know what? I'm actually a very generous person. I always repay kindness with kindness. He coughed awkwardly. Maybe the opposite. Deadpool reached behind his back. Then he suddenly pulled something out. A small wooden door. He placed it gently on the ground. Stryker frowned. Stop clowning around. All you're doing is making yourself look like an annoying joker. Suddenly Deadpool exploded with anger. The sudden outburst startled Stryker enough that he instinctively stepped back. Deadpool pointed angrily. Joker belongs to DC. We don't have the copyright. You trying to get Marvel sued or something? Stryker stared at him silently. Deadpool straightened his suit. I'm about to perform a magic trick. You watch quietly. No talking. Stryker scoffed. You cannot teleport. I know about your belt. This facility contains materials that disrupt spatial jumps. Teleportation is impossible here. Deadpool wagged a finger like a teacher correcting a student. I said it's a magic trick. His clothes instantly shifted into a formal magician's suit. What is magic? Deadpool raised one finger dramatically. Something unexpected. Then the small door opened. Stryker suddenly felt a bad premonition. He immediately pressed his earpiece. Bring the weapons down now. But it was already too late. Deadpool stepped onto the small door. And then he began sinking into it like it was quicksand. He waved goodbye. And began singing softly. Goodbye everybody. I've got to go. His body sank lower and lower. Stryker could only watch helplessly. First his torso disappeared. Then his shoulders. Then only one hand remained outside the door. The hand waved slowly. Suddenly the hand stopped. Then it changed into an extremely rude gesture. The middle finger. Deadpool flipped Stryker off one final time. Then slam. The door closed. Stryker noticed something immediately. A small device on the door was flashing red. The blinking grew faster. And faster. And faster. Then boom. A violent explosion erupted. Flames burst outward. The fire reflected against the blue shield, turning it crimson. The explosion lit up Stryker's face. His expression was unbelievably dark. But he didn't move. He didn't retreat. Because he knew something. The shield protecting this room was nearly indestructible. The explosion could not break it. But the explosion wasn't meant to destroy the shield. It was meant to create a distraction. A moment later, prison guards finally rushed in carrying the experimental weapon known as Experiment 12. They were too late. Stryker glanced at them coldly. But he didn't say anything. After a moment, he spoke calmly. Gather everyone. Collect every fragment. Even the ashes. Send everything to the research lab. Years ago, when constructing this underground facility, Stryker had secretly tested it. He had invited several mutants capable of spatial teleportation. Nightcrawler-type teleporters. Dimensional jumpers. Every test had failed. The facility was supposed to block all spatial movement. And yet Deadpool had escaped. Stryker looked at the destroyed door fragments. His eyes narrowed. If I can understand how he escaped. He muttered quietly. Then this failure will not be a total loss. But deep down, Stryker knew the truth. Deadpool had humiliated him completely. And somewhere far away, the most unpredictable mercenary in the world was probably laughing. Free readers see the storm coming. Patrons are already inside it. com/Dragonscribe31. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.